Good to go? All right, so I am going to teach on the book of Ecclesiastes today. We were going through it in the Bible reading, and I thought it'd be good to have some understanding of the book beyond just okay, here's the book and we're going through it. And I love the book of Ecclesiastes. It's a little bit of a downbeat book when you read it at face value, but it makes me happy because though it seems downbeat, the message within it is really good. So I'm going to start in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 5, giving a little bit of a background to the book. So in the first verse of Ecclesiastes, he says, I, the preacher, was king over Israel. Let me pull that up real quick. So in Ecclesiastes 1, he says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. So this is Solomon who wrote this book. And in 1 Kings chapter 3, you get a little bit of context of the wisdom that Solomon had in this. So 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 5, it says, in Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night and God said, ask what I shall give thee. So he appears to Solomon in a dream, and he says, ask what you would like, and I'll give it to you. In verse 6, and Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father. And I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people, and that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad, for who is able to judge thy so great a people? And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and an understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. So you see Solomon here, he asked God for wisdom to discern so that he could judge his people. And God said he's going to make him wiser than anyone that's been before and than anyone that will become after. And then he said that he also has given him things that he didn't ask because he asked something that was wise. And so he's given him riches as well and honor, and then that he was going to give him length of days if he would walk in his ways. So then Ecclesiastes, going to read, basically just going to be in the book of Ecclesiastes. And obviously I don't have time to teach the whole book. But for a while I was thinking I wanted to preach on the whole book at some time. But then I was talking to my dad and I was like, you think I could do it in 1 week just to kind of give the summary of the book so that it's clear enough without going through the whole thing? And he was like, I think you could. Because a lot of it is repetitive and a lot of wisdom, but you only need some of it to get the gist. So I'm going to just go through some chapters and then skip around to what I thought was most important to the point of the book. So before I get into that though, I think it's important to understand, number one, that this is before Christ came. So this is, Solomon and his wisdom as a man of God, but not with the understanding of any of the gospel. And number two is his pursuit is to look at the earthly wisdom and decide what's good for men to do. That is his goal here. It isn't really this isn't the gospel, this isn't the message of the gospel, this isn't quite the same, but this has a massive effect on our lives because we're still people who live our lives and have all the same things that he's going through here. But this is more like the carnal wisdom of God, if you will, because it's giving the wisdom for a life that we still live here, that is, but not the spiritual side of our life. It's the more physical side, which we still live both sides. So, starting in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 1, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So vanity is something that's empty or meaningless. It doesn't have a lasting value to it. It's vain. So he starts off with a little bit of a conclusion there. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. And then he's going to explain that. So, verse 3, what profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? So this is one of his big things that he's looking for in this book. This is, again, the wisest man, God said. He said, there will never be anyone before you like you, and there's never be anyone after you as this wise. And this is what he's looking for. What profit hath a man of all of his labor which he taketh under the sun? In chapter 2, verse 3, he says, I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. So this is what he's looking for. What is the good for all men to do the days of their lives? So, and again, this is the physical side. There's a spiritual side, but this is the physical side of it, and a very important one, I think. So chapter 3, verse 4. One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Into the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labor, man cannot utter it, the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. So he starts off with his initial thing where he's saying that the earth is the way it is, and it just keeps going. One generation comes and one generation passes away, but the earth remains the same. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, the rivers go and they go back to the sea, and then they come back around into the rivers again, and life just continues, this earth continues, and one generation just comes and goes. Then in verse 9 he says, the things that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. So again, he's making the point, is there anything that we could say, oh look, this is a new thing. This is going to change life for mankind dramatically, and there isn't. There are things that are newly built, like you could say, oh well, the pyramids was new, or he built this building and that's new, but there is no new thing that affects life as it is. Even like today we have internet, but it's just an invention out of something that already existed. So there is no new thing under the sun, not that there isn't another house that was built, but that there's no new thing that changes life as it is. Verse 12, I the preacher was king over Israel in Jerusalem. So he's the king of Israel in Jerusalem. And I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. So he says, okay, I was king, and I gave to search out what was good for men to do. And he said, this was a vanity, and this sore travail hath God given to the sons of men to be exercised therewith. Because when you look around and you start thinking like, okay, what's the purpose of things? Okay, I go to work, you start to realize it's something that God's given us to be exercised with to see what's the point of life. So that we'll come up with realizing what he concludes in this, and then we'll see our need for the gospel later on to have something eternal beyond this earthly place. And then he says, that which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. There are some things that are just broken in the way that life works, and we can't fix it. There's some things that are wanting, and we just can't number them. Verse 16, I commune with mine own heart, saying, lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly, and I perceived that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. So, obviously God said he made him wise, and then he said, but in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. Because the more you know, you start to realize that, we have it really good here in America, but throughout the world there are many things that are wrong, and the more you learn, the more wisdom you have, the more you realize those things, so you have more grief. Chapter 2, verse 1, he says, let me see real quick. I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. So he says, okay, I'm going to prove thee with mirth. Because he wants to see what's good to do. So he says, okay, I'm going to enjoy pleasure, and behold, this is vanity. I said of laughter, it's mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? So this is his initial conclusion. Later on, he explains it later, but initially on face value, he's like, well, maybe this is what's good for us to do. We'll just laugh, we'll have a good time. And he says, no, that isn't it either. It's empty. It's lacking. It doesn't have any value that is long-lasting. And then verse 4, he says, I made me great works. I builded me houses. I planted me vineyards. I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruit. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and I had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasures of kings and of the provinces. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. And so I was great, and increased more than all they that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. So, he's the king of Israel, the strongest nation in the world at the time. And God has blessed him with all sorts of things. He says he's made him all these works. He's got servants. He's got singers and everything he could want. He says, whatever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy. So he has everything. And what is his conclusion from that? Verse 11. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do. And behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Now can you imagine? This is the top person in the world. He has something a position and everything that he could ever want that no one has ever had, and probably no one will have since then. He has the top of the world. He's the king. He has all of these things. He has everything more than certainly any of us could ever expect to have. And yet, having all of that, was he happy? Was that he finally arrived? He was fulfilled? Nope. He says, and I looked on the works that my hands had wrought, and the labor that I had labored to do, all these things he got, all these things he built, all this accomplishment, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. The reason I love this book is because so many people strive to be rich, or to have some position of authority, or to have this honor, to have this or that. And yet you see, here's the guy who's on top of the world. He's got everything. And what does he say? Oh, it's all vain. It's all just vexes my spirit just to see it and know it. It has no value. It's just worthless. Wouldn't that change your perspective if you realized that? If you realized that you could have everything and still not be happy? Or you could have nothing and be happy? Happier than Solomon was, the king of everything? Isn't that funny? That's what I love about this book. We're going to go through a lot more of it, but it's so freeing to realize this. Because it isn't in the things you have, it isn't in the position or the this and that. Life is vain in so many ways, and when you realize this and the truth of this book, it just frees you to do things that actually matter. And to have happiness and joy, not based on the outcome of life, but just based on your own decision to be that way. And so, here, he has everything, and he says, oh, it's all vain. It's all vexation of spirit. Shouldn't that affect a little bit the way you think about things? When you're like, oh, I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to work so that I can retire. And then what? You're going to strive and work, and he's going to get in this later, where you try and try and try, and then you get to the point, and you're like, I just wasted all those years, just like, oh, I'm just going to get through this, and then I'm going to finally take my ease. And you could have been enjoying those years, but instead you're waiting for some time where you'd have some other thing that would help with that. And it doesn't work. Here you have this man, the wisest man, and the richest man, and all vanity and vexation of spirit. So, chapter 2, verse 12. Let me see if I was going to. Okay. Verse 12. And I turned myself to behold wisdom, and madness, and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath been done already, or which have been already done. And there you see he says it. He's like, what can a man do that comes after the king? He's got all of this. So I'm going to figure out what's good, because I have everything. And I can know for certain. But what can the man do that cometh after the king? What can we do? Are we going to somehow surpass Solomon? No. Even that which hath already been done. Verse 13. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. Then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I then the more wise? Then I said in my heart that this also is vanity. So again, you got to remember the context of the book. This isn't New Testament. This isn't as we have things now, but this is just a man looking and saying, what is good for men to do? Okay, should people be wise? Is that what's really going to make your life worth it and not vain? But you see, he says, then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. And that's true. A lot of people, when you're wise, you can see things coming. But, so like he says, a wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. So wisdom helps you to be able to see things coming, avoid dangers and whatnot. But there is one event that happened to both of them. Both of them are going to die, whether they're wise or whether they're not. And that's what he's looking for, is what's good? What's going to make it? And he's like, well, they're both going to die, so why am I wiser? What was the profit of me doing that? But he does say that I saw that wisdom excelleth fire as far as light excelleth darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness, and I myself perceive that one event happeneth to them all. So later on, he's going to commend wisdom for different reasons, but just looking at it from the further out view, he's saying, okay, we're both going to die. So maybe, which one is the way better? Well, you can see everything when you're a wise man, but one event happens to them both. Time and chance happens to them all, he says later. Verse 16, there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man as the fool? And you have people, who do you remember? From 2 generations back, or from any amount of time back. And he's saying, the wise man, there's no remembrance of him more than the fool. Okay, so we're all going to die, but is one going to be remembered more? No. They're both going to be forgotten. So he's making that point as well, that, well, what value is there then? They both die the same. Verse 17, therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor, wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. So, again, you have a man who has everything. And when he looks around, he has the wisdom. A lot of people, it says ignorance is bliss. You've heard that saying. Not really true, but true in some extent if there wasn't an eternal reality. Because when he was so wise and he starts to look and say, okay, I built all these things, this is all great. And then he was like, wait a second. For what? What does it matter? What's it going to profit me? I'm going to die? Like, okay, I get to take my ease now, but there's no value in it all. And so it's funny because he had everything. And what's he say? Therefore I hated life, because the work that's wrought in the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. Now, wouldn't that free you if you realized that, okay, I could live in a small little house, or I could build this mansion, and it would be glorious and wonderful, and it wouldn't matter. Solomon had it all. You couldn't have a bigger house than he had. He built all these beautiful houses you read about in the Old Testament that he made for these himself and for his wives. But in the end, it was, he's like, it's all worth nothing. It's all vanity and vexation of spirit. Isn't that just like give you some freedom when you're like, I'm going to work on this project and then I'm going to be happy when I get my house done and everything's in order? No, you won't. It won't do it. And it saves you from wasting your life on something that's empty. And you can see it from him, because this is, again, you can be wiser than him. God said he was the wisest man ever to be. And he had the most things. Are you going to have more than he did? But yet he realized, and he'll give you some conclusions of what he thinks it's good to do then, knowing that all the things he had didn't make him happy. What then? So what verse am I in? I think 19. No. So then he said he's going to leave everything he made to somebody else. And what if he's a fool? He did end up being. His son was not good, and it turned out poorly for him. But it's a very true point. You're going to leave it for somebody. What if they're a fool and they waste it? Verse 20. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. Verse 21. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom, and in knowledge, and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. Sometimes, the rich are fools or are evil. And yet it'd be like, well, if that could just get in the hands of a just man, it could be used rightly. But it's just vanity, because you don't know who's going to come after you. You might build up all this wealth and give it to somebody, and somebody else gets it, and it's, you gave it to a wicked person. And that's what he's realizing. Verse 22. For what hath man of all his labor and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh no rest in the night. This also is vanity. Now I think that's very interesting, because you do meet those type of people who they work and their days are sorrows and their travail is grief, and they don't take any rest in the night, and they're always thinking and working and doing things, and they're going to build up this empire, or they're going to have money, and they're going to be able to retire or provide for their family. And not to say providing in the minimal, but to be like, we're going to have everything. And yet he's saying, what's the point of it? What do you have for all your labor? If you're not going to have rest in the night because you're up and you're tired and you're worried about things, and then you get up and you work and your days are sorrow and travail, and so what is the point of that? It's all vanity anyway. Verse 24. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. But this is, as far as, again, carnal wisdom goes, this is completely true. There's nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. I think that's interesting. Make his soul enjoy good in his labor. You know, you can work and be like, oh, this is miserable and this sucks. Or you could just make yourself enjoy good in your labor. You're going to go to work and you're going to have a great time, and you can never, you never work a day in your life, you love what you're doing, but you can make your soul enjoy good in his labor. And I just thought that's interesting. Because, again, you see, he's looking at it all. He's like, okay, well, is it to make all the money? No, that's not it. And then he's like, then just eat and drink. Enjoy the gifts that God's given you. Enjoy food, enjoy good things, and enjoy the good in your labor. Show up and have a great time at work. It's funny because I love working. I really enjoy going to work, and I just have a great time. And there was a time when I'd be like, oh, I'm going to work so I can get to the weekend. Like, yeah. And then I read this book very soon after I got saved, and then I listened to some teaching on it afterwards too, and it's really good. And it was like, oh, I can just go to work and enjoy every day because all I have is today. I don't have tomorrow. My life could be gone in an instant, but I can go to work and have a great time at work, and I can get home and have a great time at home. And it doesn't need to be working so you can get to some point so you can, finally rest. You have, it's all vanity. Enjoy each day. Enjoy when you're working. Enjoy when you're not working. And when you get home, enjoy a good meal. Don't ruin your life because you're going to save up and get to this point where you finally have the money, and then you're going to, live life like you've been doing, And I just think this is such a freeing book. And obviously God decided to put 12 chapters in his word of this book for a reason, for this reason. So, then verse 26, or verse 25, for who can eat, or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. So you see, he said earlier, this is from the hand of God, that people should just enjoy their labor and rejoice and then eat and drink, and just because God will give to people who are good in his sight the ability to do that. But to the sinner he giveth travail, that to gather and to heap up, to work and then to give to somebody who's good in God's sight. So let me see, I think I was going to skip chapter 3, because I got to try and make it small enough to fit 18 through 26. Okay, so then chapter 3, verses 16 through 17. So I'm skipping around to the things that are more the point of the book. And the whole book is great, but so I can get it in one message. So chapter 3, verse 16. He says, and moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. And I said in mine heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. So, again, he says, okay, and I saw under the sun the place of judgment. So where things should be judged properly, and there should be a recompense for the evil. And I saw that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. And I said in mine heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there's a time there for every purpose and for every work. So, many times there isn't judgment, but he's saying, okay, well, God will judge, even though you look around this life and there is a lack there. And then verse 18, I said in mine heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, that God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts. Even one thing befalleth them. As the one dieth, so dieth the other. Yea, they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast. For all is vanity. All go into one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward to the earth? Wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his own works, for that is his portion, for who shall bring him to see what shall be after him? So, again, he's saying, well, they're both going to die. A man or a beast, sometimes a deer gets hit by a car, and sometimes men do. There's no preeminence in that regard. Again, he's looking at it from the further out view of a man above a beast. And one of the things that understanding this helps you to realize is that God came and died for you and loved you, even though you're just this, like this song, dust in the wind. A little bit we are. We just, like he says later, that Man spendeth his days as a shadow as it's gone. You see a shadow and it's gone. Or it's the grass that withereth. It's the same way. There's grass that comes up and then it dies and there's more grass. And that's how men are. There's been millions of people and there's going to maybe be if he doesn't come back. And it's just, life is, it just comes and goes and it's short and it gives you a proper perspective that God is our maker and that he's given us life and everything, and he just helps you to realize and have appreciation for the gift of grace and for the fact that he would love you and come and die for you when you're like, well, who am I? I'm one of millions of people alive right now. As the sand of the seashore, he says for just the children of Israel, sand of the seashore innumerable. And yet and he cares enough about us to come individually to us. I thought that's interesting. Chapter 4, verse 1. So I turned and considered all the oppression that are done under the sun. And behold, the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter. And on the side of their oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter. Wherefore I praise the dead which are already dead more than the living which are yet alive. Yea, better is he than both they which have not yet been, who hath not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. So this is interesting, but again, we live in America, and this is like a nation that has had a lot of Christians and believers throughout it. And that has been a wonderful blessing to the laws. It was founded by many believers and things. And we don't see it nearly as bad, but even when you look around in America, and you consider all the oppression, like he said, and the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter. When there's no one going to relieve them, there's no comforter, and they're oppressed, and on the side of the oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter. And when you see that, you might come to the same conclusion Solomon says. He says, wherefore I praise the dead which are already dead, more than the living which are yet alive. Because they don't have to suffer as the people who are yet alive. Yea, better is he than both they which have not been, who have not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. And so, in a time without Christ and without redemption, that would probably seem pretty true. Better than somebody who never even came into existence and someone who has to suffer in this life, because when you see the suffering, you're like, well, it'd just be better not to be around, which we don't have that much in America. And then chapter 5, skipping down to verse 8. If thou seest the oppression of the poor and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. So again, he's saying, we have more of this set up in America where there's hierarchy of rule. And he says, if you see perverting of justice and judgment in a province, know that there's going to be governors above them, and then there's someone above them, and that they regard that as well. Verse 9, moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. When goods increase, they are increased that eat them, and what good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? And I think it's easy to read these things and be like, yeah, but to actually put that in your life and realize that if you love money and you love silver and you love things, you're not going to be satisfied with it. You're just going to keep wanting more and more and more, and you'll never get to the end. And if you love abundance, you'll never be satisfied with increase. And when goods increase, they increase that eat them. What good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? You think of a big corporation, and they make millions of dollars, but then they have to pay out all their people, because when goods are increased, there's increase that eat them. And so then it ends up just being, oh, yay, we have that money, but it's just, you just get to look at it. Great, you get to look at it. What good is there, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? Verse 12, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. So furthermore, if you're someone who gets up and goes to work, you have a good sleep, Whether you eat little or much, you have good sleep. But the abundance of the rich doesn't suffer him to sleep. He has too much. He can't get tired as easily because he doesn't need to be working. So then he gets there on the night and he can't sleep, and he's got such an abundance that it won't suffer him to sleep. Isn't that interesting? You can work and work for all these things, or to work to retire or whatever, but yet the man who labors, well, he has good sleep, and it's difficult when you can't sleep well. But it's just another thing that just shows you, which is what he's going through. This is just a wise man looking around and saying, hey, you can have a great bunch of stuff and it's still just vanity. Let's see what verse. 8 through 20. All right. There is a sore evil which I have seen under the sun, namely, riches kept for the owners thereof to their hurt. But those riches perish by evil travail, and he begetteth a son, and there's nothing in his hand. So he says, I saw another thing that troubled me. There's a man who has riches, but he has someone else keep them. And then those riches perish by evil travail, and he has a son, and he doesn't have anything to give him, because someone else kept what he had. And as he came forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came, and shall take nothing of his labor which he may carry away in his hand. And again, you die, and then what is it worth? What is all that you tried and you vexed yourself to build stuff up, and then you die and you take nothing away in your hand. It's all vanity. Verse 16, and this also is a sore evil, that in all points as he came, so shall he go. That, he came in owning nothing, with nothing, and then he goes out owning nothing with nothing. Vanity. And what profiteth he that hath labored for the wind? Another place in Proverbs, he says, of riches increase, set not thine heart upon them. For riches verily make themselves wings and fly away. I can't remember what bird he says. But, it's true. You got a lot of money and then, something went wrong and you just lost everything. Oh well. Vanity. Gone in a moment. What profit hath he that hath labored for the wind? Because that's what it's like. You can't hold it. It's just, time and chance happeneth to them all. Verse 17, all his days also he eateth in darkness, and he hath much sorrow and wrath with his sickness. Behold that which I have seen. It is good and comely for one to eat and to drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor which he taketh under the sun all the days of his life, which God giveth him, for it is his portion. Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor, this is the gift of God. For he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God answereth him in the joy of his heart. Again, life is so fleeting and so quick. It seems like, 100 years to us, and and it did to, way back, 2,000 years ago, they thought, 100 years. And they're gone, so far gone. But he's saying, okay, behold that which I have seen. It's good comely for one to eat and drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor, which he taketh under the sun all the days of his life, which God giveth him, for it's his portion. That's all you get. That's all you get out of this life. You get to enjoy the day-to-day life. Again, this is from the carnal point of view, disregarding the New Testament, because this is before that. That's all you have good to do. You might as well just enjoy it. You have the day, you might die tomorrow. Just enjoy today. That's your portion of this life. Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, to rejoice in his labor, this is the gift of God. If you happen to end up in a good lot and have riches and wealth and get to enjoy that, then great. It's a gift of God. Not everyone does, but some people do. For he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God answereth him the joy of his heart. He says, yeah, that'll be better. You won't remember the tough days, because you'll have good things in this life. And then skipping over to chapter 7, starting in verse 11. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. So earlier he was saying, well, much wisdom is much grief. But here he's saying, okay, but I also saw that wisdom is good with an inheritance. So if you have wisdom and you have money, there's a profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them and have it. So, again, you see here, he gives his looking out from afar, and he says, okay, well, it's just not worth it. But then, later on, he's going through, and he's like, okay, wisdom is good because it's a defense, and money is good because it's a defense. That it'll keep you from many evils and from many things. It's like armor. It defends you against evil. Wisdom will help you to avoid it, and money will, because it'll help you to avoid some issues as well. So, he does, later, again, it's like you look out from afar and you're like, it's all a waste. But then you're like, well, but it would be better if you had these things. It would have a benefit of sorts. 11 through 14. And verse 15. All things have I seen in the days of my vanity. There is a just man that perisheth in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man that prolongeth his life in his wickedness. Be not righteous overmuch, neither make thyself overwise. Why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Be not overmuch wicked, neither be foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time? It is good that thou shouldest take hold of this. Yea, from this withdraw not thine hand. For he that feareth God shall come forth of them all. Now, first he starts off with, which is very true, that, it's like Proverbs gives a proverb. Not always true, but by and large a true saying. And he'll say a lot of things about how the wicked will be snared, but the righteous will escape. But then, the truth is that in all of his, he says, in the days, all things have I seen in the day of my vanity. So he's lived, and he said, but though, by and large, God does preserve his people, sometimes it's his will that there isn't. So it says, there is a just man that perisheth in his righteousness. There's a man who's walking in righteousness and doing a good job, and he dies young, and you're like, why was that? What's the deal there? And there is a wicked man, doesn't God judge the wicked and recompense them right away, that prolongeth his life in his wickedness. He walks in evil, and he just seems to just live, and it's like, what is the deal with that? And again, you see that it's vanity. You know, I mean, as it is, prolongeth his life. Ooh, we made it 100 years, yay. Like, it's such a short time. But he does say that, you know what? I also see that there are just men who die young. And there are wicked men who seem to just live on and on. And this is vanity. But then verse 16, this is very interesting. Because it also kind of ties in with that. He says, be not righteous overmuch. Wouldn't you just want to give yourself to just being righteous? Wouldn't that be the thing? Be not righteous overmuch. Neither make thyself overwise. Wouldn't it be good to just be wise? Well, why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Interesting, but then he'll explain it. Verse 17, be not overmuch wicked, neither be thou foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time? Often God will kill people for being wicked or foolish. So he says, don't do that. Why should you die before your time? Verse 18, he explains that. It is good that thou shouldst take hold of this. Yea, also from this withdraw not thine hand. It's very important. He says it twice. Take hold of this. Don't withdraw your hand from this. This, and then he says what it is. For he that feareth God shall come forth of them all. And that is a very interesting thing, because you could spend your life trying to be righteous and more righteous and really just be concerned about that, or you could try to be the wisest man. But he says, or you could be wicked and think that's going to preserve you, or you could be foolish and think that's going to do. But he says, this is what's important. Above all else, fear God, because he that feareth God will come forth of them all. More than the really righteous man, or the really wise man, or the wicked man, or the foolish man, he that feareth God shall come forth of them all. I thought that's a very interesting verse. Verse 25 kind of ties in with something of that. I applied mine heart to know and to search and to seek out wisdom and the reason of things, and to know the wickedness of folly, even of foolishness and madness. So he said, I wanted to learn these things and to see what the wickedness of folly was and foolishness and madness. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. And I was thinking of that verse above. He says, but whoso feareth God shall come forth of them all. And you have Proverbs 31, and what does it say? That favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. And then a little bit down later you have this, where more bitter than death. That's quite something. Really? More bitter than death? The woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands is bands, like something that ties a man down. And her heart is snares and nets, something you get trapped in, and you can't get out of. And then their hands hold as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. And again, he said, but whose fear is God will come forth to them all, because God takes care of those who fear him. He does. He helps you out of so many things. There's so many things I look back in hindsight, and I'm like, whoa, I only avoided that because God is good and because I feared him. And when he was like, don't do that, I was like, okay, I don't see why, but he that feareth God will come forth to them all. And then this is, I think, an interesting verse to know, is that, you get married to somebody, they're apparently more bitter than death. If you get with this woman he describes, whose heart is snares and nets and her hands as bands. Again, for somebody who's looking at the whole view of things, he has just what's good for men to do and whatnot, this is something he bothers to point out and say, okay, avoid this person, and whoso feareth God will escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. And that's interesting. Let's see, chapter 9, verse 7. And then this also kind of ties in with that. He says, go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Earlier on he said, I said of mirth it's mad, of laughter what doeth it? But then, because when you're looking at it from afar, it doesn't do any good. But then he's like, okay, but then all of it's vanity, but then the best thing in the midst of our vanity is to go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. If you like to wear nice clothes, then great. Let your garments always be white. They anointed their heads, and oil was, I think, good for many different health things, and it was something they always did in the old time. I don't entirely understand it, but he says, if that's what you want, let thy head lack no ointment. I always I shower a lot, because and it's just that's what I like to do, then great. I just, stay clean, wear nice clothes, great. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, drink thy wine with a merry heart. Verse 9, live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of thy life, of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun all the days of thy vanity. For that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. So that's interesting because, as compared to the woman who he described earlier, whose hands are nets and snares, and her heart is snares and nets, and her hands are bands. Here he says, live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of thy life and thy vanity. You get married to somebody, especially as a believer, he says, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. Choose wisely. You're going to be stuck with that person, likely for the rest of your life. Make sure it's someone you can live joyfully with, who you love. As he says, live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest. But he's looking back and he's saying, okay, don't worry about having all the money, all the power, all the respect, or whatever it is that you think. This is the thing that the wisest man says is important to do. This is what's good for the man to do all the days of his life. It's just enjoy each day. Rejoice in your work. Rejoice in your, you get food and you get wine, and enjoy that, and enjoy friends and family, enjoy your wife, and, let your garments be always white, and the head lack no ointment, because that's what you have. And it's funny, he keeps putting it in there. For this is all the days of the life of thy vanity, which you have given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity. It's still empty, but this is the best you can get. This is the best you've got. I just think it's hilarious. And it's great because it's just so freeing. If you actually believe this and understand this, and you start to look at things, and you go to work, and you're like, something's going wrong, and you're like, ready to get all frustrated, and then you're like, who cares? We'll be back tomorrow and we'll fix it. Big deal. It will save you so much trouble to actually understand and believe this book. To go and to have issues come up, and to realize that that's not important. That, oh, well, we lost some money. Okay, I could spend time worrying about that, or okay, who cares? A New Testament, he says, having food and raiment therewith be content. That's what you need. You need to have food so that, your body doesn't die, and raiment be nice, with the weather. That's all you need. Some people, they waste their lives trying to make money so that they can buy a house, and then they buy a house, and they need to make money for some other thing. It's just like, it's vanity. Great, work and labor and have a family and provide, and that's great. But realizing that what is important and what is not is so freeing. It's just wonderful. So let's see, where are we going next? So chapter 9, verse 11 through 12. I returned and saw under the sun. Let me read verse 10. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. I think that's interesting too. You get to work hard, do a great job, have a good time, and do everything with all of your might. Do it. Great. That's because that's what you have. That is your, you're going to die, and it's not going to matter. So while you're here, do a good job at work. Show up and work hard and learn things and do everything with all of your might, because that's what you get to do. You're going to die, and then you're not going to be able to do it, so you might as well do it now. I just think this is great. Verse 11, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all. And, that's so true. You have some people who are wise, and they do everything right, and they still just can't make money. Well, just like things just happen and go wrong. It's just like, what? But it's, time and chance happens to them all. You might just get in a car accident, your life's over. Time and chance happens to them all. I've had a lot of close calls. I pray before I drive, and sometimes there's just like things, and I'm like, whoa, that was close. Then, thank God. I prayed and I got safe. But you get in a car accident, and you're paralyzed, and you can't work the rest of your life. Okay, it happens. Time and chance happen to them all. The race isn't to the swift. You think, oh, he's the fastest guy. Oh, he twisted his ankle. Oh, well. Neither favor to them of skill. You'd think, what? This guy is way better than that guy, and yet he gets all the favor. Why does that? Well, it's just vanity. It's just the way it is. It doesn't work the way you'd think it would. If you want to be the best at something, it doesn't mean you're going to get recognized as that. It doesn't mean that you're going to make money if you're wise. It's just vanity. Time and chance happen to them all. What are you going to do? Verse 12. For man also knoweth not his time, as the fishes that are taken in an evil net, and as the birds that are caught in the snare. So are the sons of men snared in an evil time when it falleth suddenly upon them. And that's just true. Sometimes you get in a storm and it ruins your house, and you're like, well, what are you going to do? Men, just like birds, they're going along, and they got caught in a snare. That's over. Same thing for us. So if you set your life and you're like he says, laboring for the wind, you're going to labor and you're going to do, and that is the purpose of your life. You're going to make money and you're going to do all these things, and then, oh well, you can lose in an instant. Time and chance happen to them all. Life's gone. Everything you own's gone. It's all vanity. It all comes and it all goes. And when you realize these things, it's just like, you can suddenly value the things that are of importance. Chapter 11, the last of this book, 11 verse 7 through the end of the book. Truly the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, like he said, that's what your portion is, rejoice in all your years, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart and in the sight of thine eyes, but know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. I think that's interesting. It's like, you know what? When you're young, you're strong, and you think you have the world at your feet. And sometimes, if bearing any chance that comes against you, you get to enjoy life and be strong and whatever, and be the best, just go for it. He says, okay, walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of your youth. That's great, do that. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. Know that when you walk in evil, it will be a recompense for it. But enjoy your youth. But then he'll say later, therefore remove sorrow from thy heart, and put away evil from thy flesh. For childhood and youth are vanity. They're gone in an instant. Everyone was young once, and then now they're old. And, and everyone who's young is going to be old. It's a vanity. It's there. It's great. And it's gone. Just as soon as it comes. And he says, therefore remove sorrow from thy heart and put away evil from thy flesh. Because God's going to bring, like I said before, God will bring you into judgment. So walk wisely, because, it's great and then it's gone. It's a vanity. Chapter 12, verse 1. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. So here he starts to describe when people get older, which he hinted at that earlier. He said it's a pleasant thing to behold the sun, but know that the days of darkness are going to come, and they're going to be many, because you're young and then you get older. And this is, he says here, the days draw nigh when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. When your body starts to go apart and before you finally leave. While the sun or the light of the moon or the stars be not darkened, eyes always dim with age. So before that happens, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before this comes. Nor the clouds return after the rain, in the days when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders shall cease, because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. I've heard it said this way, and I think it's true, that these are a representative of your body, where he says, and the keepers of the house shall tremble, your hands. You get older, and there's not as much strength, there isn't the ability. And the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders shall cease, like your teeth. And they that look out of the windows shall be darkened, your eyes. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. You can't hear things as well. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. The end, when your life goes on. Wherever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. What I think is so interesting about this book is that I know a lot of people who are lost, and they think they're going to live forever. They're young and they're strong, and they think they're going to be young and strong forever. It comes to an end so quick. And you can spend your days, and you can walk in the sight of your eyes, like he said, and just enjoy being strong and being the best and just doing whatever you want and enjoy the pleasures. But then you get old and it's all gone. All your senses start to fade and die away. And then eventually you die and you return to the dust. Just another creature, lived and died, it's gone. And I wish people would understand this, because it's true. There's so many people who I know, because we play soccer, and they just think they're going to live forever, and they're going to be strong or whatever, and they just do whatever they want, and who's going to make them accountable, and they're going to die one day, and it's going to come too soon, and they're going to be like, oh no, and then judgment day is going to come, and they won't have thought about it, because they're just, living life, and they're going to have forever. There's always more time. I'll decide later. I'll figure things out later. Then it's gone. Vanity. So quickly. So easily. How many people die in a given day? Just accidents happen. The stupidest things, and life is gone. Verse 9, and moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed, and sought out and set in order many proverbs. The preacher sought out to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads, as nails fastened by the master of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And further, by these, my son, be admonished. So, receive the wisdom, be admonished by these things, these goads that are the words of the wise that make you get up and do things because they're warning you. Of making many books, there is no end. There's so many books nowadays, so many podcasts, and you're going to learn the wisdom. This is the wisest man on earth. If you want to know what's good, maybe go to him. Of making many books, there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. And, that's his conclusion. He said many times throughout it to just rejoice in each day, because that's all you get. You don't have tomorrow, but you have today, and you can enjoy that, and you can enjoy everything you do, and enjoy the good things. And then, the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So, again, I just love this book because when you realize this, you don't have to win things. Your ideal outcome doesn't have to be you on top in the way that you think. You don't have to, in order to be happy, a lot of people have to win. They have to win every game. And they'll be happy if they win, but if they lose, everything sucks. I just enjoy games whether I win or lose. We play soccer, and we lose, and I'm like, that was a great game. I just had a blast. Because the outcome is vanity anyway. Yay, I get to feel good that we creamed the other team for a day, and tomorrow I'll forget about it. Who cares? Or you can rejoice in everything you get. I play games, and I'm not that great at some of them I'm better at, and who cares? I have a blast. I just enjoy it. I don't need to win. Because I know that it's all vanity anyway. I can play a game, and I can lose a game horribly and be like, I just had a great time. And then it's funny, so many times the other team, when we're doing things, it's like, they won, and they're all angry anyway, and it's like, what? Vanity. Winning is not going to make you happy. And same within life. People have riches and wealth and everything, and they're just miserable. And it's like, what is the deal with that? But you can have nothing, and you can be happy. You can not own any great abundance and not have everything set, and you can just rejoice in every day, just like the man who should, because, he has everything. Do you need to be a millionaire, or can you just rejoice like you are? It's funny, there's the wage slave. I don't know if you guys know that term. A lot of people say, because you have to work, and then because you don't make enough, and then you have to keep working, and you're just a slave to making a wage. What's the difference between the wage slave and the millionaire? What's the difference? What's he got? Like, he gets to rejoice in his day off, and then he can't sleep because the abundance of the rich won't suffer him to sleep? And I've known some people who are really, really well off, and they're not happy. It doesn't do them any good. And so when you realize that, it's like, I'm not a wage slave. Who cares? I can rejoice today as if I owned everything, because what does it matter? Is that me having these things? What good is it to the man except the beholding of the eyes? And that's so true. Yeah, I get to look at it. It's great. Get to look at my bank account and feel good about myself. What? No, it's vanity. It all comes, it all goes, at a moment's notice. And the people who have everything, like Solomon, the wisest man, the greatest man, there's all this riches and honor and wisdom and everything, and he says it's all vanity and vexation of spirit. And he had everything. Doesn't that give us a little bit better perspective? I love this book. It's so freeing if you will read it and believe it. It's just, because it's true. You just start looking around at life and being like, wow, that's true. You waste so many people I see just waste away their time looking for the thing that's going to make them happy. If you're not happy with what you have now, having something in the future will do you no good. It just won't. It's just true. You can change what you want out of a situation, and you can say, I'm just going to be happy whatever the situation is, instead of being at the mercy of circumstances. You can say, I'm going to be happy whether I win or lose the game, whether I win or lose this life's game, this rat race of trying to make money and do these different things, and you can just choose to rejoice and have a good time at work or not at work, big deal, and it's very freeing. And then the other thing is obviously there's the eternal things, and that's the little bit of the other side of the coin that you don't get in this book, is that there is an eternity. And there are things that we can do that aren't vain. If you bring someone to the Lord, you're going to have all of eternity, that person with God. That is something of some eternal value. You can minister to people, you can witness, you can do, everyone has different gifts. Some people are really good preachers, and that's great. And some people are really good at going out in the streets and telling people the gospel, and some people, lead the children's lesson, and they're serving something eternal. So when you realize how vain and empty all the goals of life are, you don't spend your days thinking, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to make money so I can get that house, and when I get that house, I'm going to do this, blah, 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 blah. Or, when you realize that that's all empty anyway, you're like, oh, okay, so I'm going to spend my day serving God, because that's what's good. That's what's going to have some eternal purpose and eternal value, is I can bring someone to the Lord, and that is going to last forever and be wonderful. I can witness and I can minister, whatever. Again, a lot of people have different gifts. And sometimes it's like, well, I'm not good at that thing, so is it no value? No, whatever it is the Lord would have you do, He gives each of us gifts. Use that gift for an eternal value and realize that the rest of it is vain, and that's the only thing that's important. And it's a great thing to realize. It gives you so much freedom. It gets you, I was thinking of, a mom is a good mom is someone who knows this really, really well. When you're working with somebody at work and they're doing a terrible job and it's just like not getting it, and you're just like, oh, and you're getting so frustrated. I used to do that all the time. And my sister could tell you, I would be like, I want to be efficient. I want to get things done. I want to do them quick, and I want to do them right. So let's go. And I would get very frustrated at people if they weren't doing it just right. But then I realized getting the project done is not the important thing. That person who I'm working with is the important thing. And I was thinking, that's, it's Mother's Day. I don't really like teaching on a day thing, but it just came to my mind when I was thinking about it. It's like, that's someone who knows that. When they're working with their kid and their kid is slowing them down, whatever, doing something, because initially they don't know. And you have them and they're taking, 3 times as long to do the same project because you have them helping. But a good mother realizes that they're what's important and not the stupid project that's vain in front of them anyway. It gives you such a different perspective. Suddenly you don't have to get frustrated about, oh, this person's slowing me down. Instead you can be like, that person is what's important because that's what's eternal. The rest of this is vanity. And you can put your affection on things above. You can realize what's important and what has value instead of wasting your life into something that just goes meaningless. Built another house, great. It's going to burn, it's going to rot eventually, and then God will come back and burn it. And so it's like, you can choose the things that actually have value and have some eternal reward instead of just living for the things that are temporal. Can be gone, vanity. But I think that's probably gone long enough, but that's I wanted to teach on that book because it is a great book, and we're going through it in the scripture reading, and I think that'll give a little bit of context to it. One thing I was going to mention is that when I first got saved, a little bit into it, I listened to this book taught by Michael Pearl, and he did a really good job of it. So if you want the whole book taught through with someone with some more time to actually teach verse by verse, he does a really good on YouTube. Just look up Ecclesiastes by Michael Pearl. It's really good. And so that's that. Have somebody else to close that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing a more positive light to that book. I always never liked that book because I thought it was so negative. Man, he sounds like a depressed guy, I actually enjoy it here. I enjoy building things. I enjoy being productive. To me, work isn't really work most of the time. Sometimes it is, but it gives us a good perspective, I would say, to understand that it's all going to burn up. But I like having my conveniences. I like working hard and making myself a nice house where I can push a button and I have AC and I'm all comfortable. I think that's our reward right now. I was thinking when you were speaking, what would Solomon think of us today in all his wisdom in 2026? What would he have to say to America? And I wonder what he would think about all the college degrees that never get used. That's a pretty short little window of vanity of vanities right there. Colleges are good for if you got something that you're pursuing, but what's the percentage of degrees that don't get used? It's extremely high. I want to say 80%, but that seems almost too high. People in America, we have the idea of what is going to make our life like almost everlasting. Like that's how it's sold. Like you go to college and you get yourself a house and you're a slave to the government the rest of your life for 30 years until that house is paid for, and then you can drink and be merry and happy after that. Or you work 2 or 3 jobs just so you can go home for the weekend. You work for the weekend, like you were saying. You work for the weekend so you can drink with your buddies out in the garage and be miserable complaining about everything. That's pretty much the American life, is to work, and on the weekends we party and complain. But the wisdom of God tells us that we can have joy in everything we do and be productive. I was thinking of Proverbs 10, a couple of verses there I was going to read. The Proverbs of Solomon, which is the same guy, a wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother. Treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivereth from death. So doing the right thing is good. Like I was talking to Evan this week, and I was like, man, we're talking about our wives, bragging about our wives. And it's like, if 2 people get together and they do righteous, they do God's will, they do what God, the right thing, God's way, it's just the reward. It's great here in this life right now. There's peace at home, there's love, there's a relationship. It's great. 2 people doing the right thing works. There's not one off the side having his own agenda, which is not godly. It's not right to be all about yourself, to be selfish. But when both parties are living their role that God has put them in, it just simply works. It just does, and it's great. Life right now is great because we got Jesus Christ that took our place. So it's not as vanity as it was back when Solomon was here. Actually, we got a hope. We got a hope that Solomon didn't have. You don't see him there talking about, well, one day I'll be in glory. The glory that he saw was right now, right there, his mansion, covered in gold, and it was empty. It didn't fill that inner spirit. So I would say to the young person today in America, with the little bit of wisdom I got, think about a child. I'm a father now of 6 girls, and I would be pretty disappointed if they were sitting around there all the time waiting for me to tell them what to do, waiting for me to somehow allow them to enjoy their lives and to go and do things and try things. I think God's a little bit the same way. I think too many times we're sitting here waiting for God to tell us something to do, to give us some kind of direction, when He has given us wisdom. He has given us a book with a lot of wisdom. Read the book of Proverbs and get active. Do things. Enjoy life. Live it up. Because that's your reward in this time right now. And sitting around depressed because things are not going the way you want it, or your plan's not working out, or like Joe was saying, that's not a way to live. Money is overrated, but it's also very depressing when you don't have it. You know, they say, oh, money don't mean anything. Yeah, it does when you're hungry or you're cold. But if you work hard, you'll be fine. And if you do the right thing. The Lord will not suffer the soul of the righteous to famish. The Lord will not. So fear God, and He will not suffer you to be in fame. But He casts away the substance of the wicked. So if you're wicked, the things that you work hard for, God can just cast them away. So you actually lose what you actually earn. And then if you're righteous, God, you multiply even greater. So all that said, though, like I tell my wife all the time, people will be like, why would you build chicken barns? The risk. And it's like, well, that's what I enjoy doing. You see, I'm not following what someone else thinks I should do. I want to do what I want to do. It's my life. And I'm not going to go to college or go be a doctor because someone else thought I should be a doctor. I got gifts, and I know what I want to do, and I know what I enjoy doing, and that's what I'm going to do. Because it's my life, and I got a short little window of life here. So let's not fall into the trap. This is what I think Solomon would say, is don't fall into the American trap of success and happiness because it's like vain times 10. Like, it's just wrong. The American economy and philosophy is designed to make you a slave to the government, to where you're working for them, you're bound to them the rest of your life. Because to get what you want, what they think that they're telling you that you want and that you need, helps them. But if you go and live in peace and happiness and joy outside of their plan, they don't benefit as much. But when you live according to what they think that you need and what is free for you and what is good for you, then it benefits them. So they're really not after you being happy, they're after them being filthy rich. So I would say, live your life the way you want it and enjoy it. I think too many people are living a job they hate just because they're scared to think for themselves and to do what they like. Try things. I'm not afraid of failure. Try it. If there's something you like to do, but everybody's saying, oh, that's too scary. If this person tried that and failed, if it is what you want to do, do it. Do it. Try it. If you like it, try it. You love God, failures. God raises people up like crazy that have lived in failure. So I think it's not condemning. Anybody else have something they'd like to share? All right, Randolyn.
I love the book of Ecclesiastes, and I do think that it's very hopeful. It was something that I enjoyed very much after I got saved, because to me it made the world make sense about all the things, the questions, and all the stuff that we see. And that's what everybody's always trying to answer is why do good people die, why do bad people live? It's not always the case, but sometimes it is. And life is short, so just enjoy it and praise the Lord. I think the biggest thing that Solomon would be very upset about what he sees now is that we have so much and we're so unthankful.
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought of you guys when he was teaching. It's just to make an example. I'm not knocking anybody here, but just for an example for people to do what makes them feel, or what is good for them, that they enjoy. So in my mind, when I'm tight financially, I'm like gripping to every dollar I make, just to like, I'm planning ahead. I don't want to get myself in this position again where I'm broke again. So I'm going to, I made some money now, so I'm going to hang on to it, and I'm going to not let this happen again. And one thing I've noticed with the Boise's, they might be down to their last dollar, and they make $500. Guess what they go do? They all go out to eat.
May not be always wise.
And I'm like, what in the world is wrong with these people? But that's what they do. They're not bound by what I think, And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to go eat too now. So.
Thanks for telling everybody.
Hey, you're laughing. You're laughing, so it's working. Yeah. I think we should be, it was supposed to be a good thing. I think we should go out to eat more, or just, it's a good point, so.
No, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
I see my husband give our last $400 to replace parts of the preacher's car that took before him.
Yeah.
Sean didn't know how he was going to get the gas in our vehicle next week. And God uses somebody to walk over and ask Sean to do a job. God is always working for us.
Yeah. It just works. The fear God thing is the key, I think, and to trust Him. So. All right, let's pray. God, we thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you that we can walk wisely and actually have a full life. We don't need to live in poverty and distress, and we don't need to live poor and miserable. But we can be successful. We can be living a good life now, and we don't have to follow another man's desire for our lives, but we can follow our own, gifts, our own desire, what we want in our lives. And just pray for wisdom for each one, that we can look outside the box and be free. Thank you for the blood that covers our sins. And I just pray that whatever we do in this life would have an eternal meaning, an eternal reward. In Jesus' name, we thank you for the food. Amen.